I'm going to spend a little bit of time this week going through the second part of Project 3. Last week we went over the first part, and I'm actually going to break the second part down into a couple weeks. So we're going to start by going to the Project 3 instructions and rubric, and I'm going to first scroll down to the section with the directions. And this is where you'll get your most detailed information of what you're supposed to do. So we are going to go to part 2, which is the communication data analysis report. And so basically what's happened is that you have been given some data on gradebook entries and a communication log and a team performance metrics. And so you're going to put all those together, and you're going to use graphical representation, graphs and charts, and written descriptions to create a report to document findings on how the frequency and mode of communication impacted grades and submission dates of student assignments. And once you've analyzed the impact of communication, you'll state how you will adapt your communication strategy moving forward. So this week we're just going to focus on the first section. And in this first section, you are just going to use the gradebook log and the communication log. They're both in the same document. We'll go to those in just a minute. It shows at the bottom here that use the gradebook and communication log in the supporting materials section and do the following task to complete the first section of your report. Again, we'll go to that piece in just a minute. So there are two main bullet points that go with the first part of part 2. The first one is that you are going to draw logical connections between contact methods and grades and submission dates of assignments, and speak to what was effective or ineffective about the chosen contact methods. And so when you determine that, you're going to look at the pre versus post workshop contact methods and consider answering the following questions. When it says consider answering the following questions, basically the assumption is that you will look at all 5 of those questions and that you will use those to guide your paper. And so this would be a subsection. All of this bullet point and the questions that go underneath it would be sections divided out in your paper. You would have a heading for the connections, the logical connections between contact methods, and then you would have additional subheadings for what changed about the methods. How are those changes reflected in the gradebook? And so some of these you could put together, like those first 2, what changed and how are they reflected in the gradebook, maybe you can put those together and so forth. But you will have headings to divide out, and you'll want to answer the questions that are provided. The second thing that you're going to look at are connections between the content and timing of communications and grades and submission dates of assignments. And you're going to speak to what was effective or ineffective about the content and timing of communications. Again, you have more questions to answer. In order to get full credit for the project and receive the points in the rubric, you're going to want to make sure you answer all of these questions. In saying that, I want to jump back a step, because you're not just simply going to the question, looking at the data report, and answering it. What you do have to do is you have to demonstrate that you have actually gone into the resources that are available that go along with Unit 3, and I'm back to Project 3, where I have Unit 3-1, which is student feedback and effective surveys, and then Unit 3-2, analyze data. You'll need to go to both these pieces in the unit resources and read through the information. You can't just answer the questions. You can't answer these bulleted questions without citing sources from the readings, from the websites, from all the different resources, the videos that are provided within your unit materials. Now, you may even go out and get some of your own, but a lot of what you need is going to be contained right in the resources you've already been given. So you do want to make sure you answer all the questions that are provided, and make sure you set up your paper so that you have these different pieces in different sections and they're easy to find. Now, I do want to now go back to the piece that you'll need from the supporting materials, so we'll scroll down to that. And in the supporting materials, there are 2 documents. You have the gradebook and communication log, and then the second data set is the team performance matrix. You won't need the second one until the second piece of part 2 for Project 3. So we're just going to go into the gradebook and communication log. I already have it open. And there are 2 pages to this document. The first page is the gradebook entry or segment from the gradebook, and then if you scroll down, you'll see the communication log. Now, the key to highlight in this document is on April 1st, there was a communication workshop. So you see the divide in the gradebook, but when you get down to the communication log, that divide was not put in there. So you'll have to remember when you get to the entry on March 29th, and then again the one on April 3rd, in between there, the communication workshop happened. So you'll group the top items in one, the bottom items in another, and you'll look at the trends that occurred before and after that communication workshop. You can glance at the grades real quick and see that you see more 50s, 56, 60, 60, and so forth. And then when you get down to the next section, you can see some 90s, 100s, and the lowest grade you get to in that section is 67. So you'll want to look at that information, tie it to the communication log, tie it back to what all the research is showing in the resources that were provided when you write your submission for the first part of Project 3. And so it can be, if you scroll down to where it says what to submit, it does say that for the communication data analysis and report that you can do a Word document, a Google document, or a presentation and so forth. Regardless of what you choose to do, you still have to have professional writing with complete sentences, grammar, spelling, and so forth, and citations to the research. One citation most likely is not going to get it for all of this that you have to do. You're looking at lots of different pieces, lots of different questions to answer. You'll see some good information in the resources that are provided, so go through those for this first section, and that's what you'll need to do for the second part of Project 3.